Hey there everyone, and welcome to some RPG horror story cringe with DnD Doge. Dungeons & Dragons is a great way to express creativity for most ages. It can also be a great exercise in teamwork, and can lead to long-lasting friendships. Though, sometimes, you can run into someone that doesn't quite see it that way. Much like in today's episode, where we have a tale about a man-child that runs a game store, and threatens to ban people for not getting his way in a game of D&D. Then, the players come to find out that he is also pretty greedy in real life as well. So, without further ado, let's hop right into this story. When the That Guy Owns the Store, by Reddit user Commander Focus. This happened months ago over the span of about a year and a half. My local game store has 2 weekly D&D sessions, as many do, and I was a regular participant of a homebrew campaign. I am often a DM at annual events in this game store, and unfortunately, this fueled a lot of my own inaction for the problem player, as I was worried telling him off directly would get me kicked out of the store, and therefore not able to DM there anymore, which is one of my favorite activities. But in hindsight, I still feel guilty for not standing up for the victim in this story. The important characters for this story are the DM, an old friend of mine, me, a gnome rogue, and Larry, the problem player, an elven wizard and owner of the store. Not his real name, because I don't want this coming back to the store. There were about 5 regular PCs in the campaign, but besides Larry, they were all great people and players. Now, I say Larry was the owner because he calls himself that, but in reality, his retired father owns the store and pays for all the upkeep. Larry runs the day-to-day, and his father just checks in a couple times a month. The father is an overall great guy, and my former scoutmaster, so I don't know where Larry gets all this from. But this detail becomes relevant much later. When the DM pitched the homebrew for one of the weekly sessions, he had to clear the switch from module to homebrew with Larry, so the store's post on the online site would accurately reflect that it was a homebrew. Larry was so interested in DM's campaign that he insisted on playing himself, which was fine with everyone else. We all made level 3 characters at our session 0, and began a week after that. During character creation, Larry was arguing over starting equipment and gold, demanding that, as a noble background, he would be loaded and able to afford a few magic items, and hundreds more gold than everyone else. We all just had the standard starting equipment, so we were all getting main character warnings from this. The DM held firm on the magic items, which got Larry noticeably upset, though the DM did give him a high amount of gold to start, just not the amount that he had pitched. During the first session, the party was split into 3 groups arriving into town, and through common goals would meet up and form a party. It was going to be 2, but Larry insisted on having his own scene. When the first 2 groups' scenes open, we introduce our characters a bit and explain why we are answering the crown's summons to hunt a revenant. We were all respectful with the time that we took to describe our characters, since the party started out somewhat separate, and we wanted to split the time evenly. But Larry immediately proved to be a spotlight hog, going into long detail about his character's every detail, and how gorgeous, rich, and powerful he looked, and how commoners were in awe of his magical powers. The DM had him roll a performance check after he said this, and hilariously, he rolled poorly, but that didn't stop Larry. As soon as his long intro was done, he immediately keeps the spotlight on him by trying to talk to merchants so he can find a magic item that he wanted to start with, but the DM didn't allow. This caused one of the players to speak up, since we all witnessed his argument with the DM during session 0, but he gave a long explanation about player agency, which resulted in him finding the item, but not having enough gold to afford it yet. By now, the DM informs us that my group sees this mage arguing with the vendor over the price. My gnome, being a charismatic SOB, tries to politely step in and talk the shopkeeper down a bit on the price. I figured this could be a good reason for Larry's character to start on good terms with us. But I was wrong. Larry chastises my character for interrupting his noble business and calls him a common useless thug, even though my persuasion roll did convince the merchant to give Larry a better deal on the item. I inform Larry that we have a good money-making opportunity for someone like him, and he begrudgingly agrees, but tries to act like our boss for the rest of the session. After about 2 hours in session time, the party gets closer and we set out on our revenant hunting quest. When we reach our foe, after a few random encounters, we form a plan where the party will try to get the jump on the creature, while Barbarian and Larry wait in the front since they can't stealth too well. The group agrees, but not 2 minutes into the plan, Larry's wizard gets bored and runs up to the Revenant head-on to 1v1, and, well, everything goes to hell. Larry stays in the front lines, and of course is downed quickly into the combat. Larry proceeds to then loudly complain and demand out of character to heal him. When our cleric does, he still stays in the front lines, casting spells, and the cycle continues, his screaming getting worse and worse with each round that he's down. This would unfortunately be a constant issue. Honestly, our group wouldn't mind if Larry was just reckless, but the constant yelling at us when he was in trouble or downed became draining. He even once threw us out of the store halfway through a normal session time when Cleric didn't pick him up one turn because they thought healing Barbarian to finish the boss was a better call. We should have left, but his yelling, on its own, wasn't anyone's breaking point, and we figured as he got more powerful, he would stop raging over everything. We tried to talk to him, and even had the DM ask him to tone down the yelling, at least so he wouldn't scare away the customers who would play at the one-shot table on the other side of the store. It would get better for a session or two, but he'd always go back when things didn't go his way. My breaking point came when Larry set his anger on a guest player who was not only a frequent customer, but also a minor. See, the weekly one-shot DM who hosted games simultaneously to our campaign had to cancel last minute, but I don't think everyone got the message, as 3 people still showed up. When they asked our DM what happened, we filled them in, and feeling bad, I offered to DM a different one-shot heist that I had played with my online friends a few times, and could pull up from my phone. I figured I'd just let the DM play my gnome if the group needed my character. 2 of them weren't interested though, and decided to leave. This left a 13-year-old who now had no game to play, and whose mom couldn't pick him up for a few hours. My ever-accommodating DM offered to work in the character he made for the one-shot as a guest PC in our campaign, giving him an appropriate level to match our party, of course. No one had a problem with this except for Larry. You see, Larry had a problem if anyone took too long to do anything, except if it was him, of course. And this kid was fairly new to the game. I could tell that it was really bothering the kid, and we all told Larry to give him a break, but Larry wasn't budging. Eventually, the kid got the hang of things, and he even finished off the boss with a spell. After being harassed by Larry all game, he finally quipped back and said, "Good thing I finished that boss. I guess it's good that I took my time instead of getting downed and crying," looking directly at Larry when he said that. Burn! This was when Larry's face turned red and he unleashed the biggest tantrum I've ever seen an adult make. I'll give you the PG version. Larry shouted, "You stupid little crap! You're the most R-worded player I've ever had to bear with. You don't talk to me like that. This is my store. I should beat the crap out of you for that." Larry gets right up in his face now. "You're effing banned from the store. If I ever catch your worthless ass in the store, you're effing dead." Then he just kept screaming the F word at him until the kid ran out crying. His mom came a few minutes later to pick him up, thank God, though no one ever saw him again. No one in our group knew what to say. We just witnessed a 30-something man-child scream at an actual kid in the most feral way possible. It's one thing when he yells at us. We are all 20-somethings who can take it. But seeing it happen to that kid was everyone's last straw. I told him that I wouldn't play with anyone who did what Larry just did, and I told him to get his head examined before I left. He was screaming at me too as I made my way out to my car, and I'm pretty sure that I was also banned. We made a group chat without Larry to try and see if we could host games at someone else's place, since there's no way any of us were going to play at the store again. We unfortunately couldn't agree on a spot that worked for everyone, so the campaign essentially died after that explosive session. The DM decided to host a pre-written game, and I think he is still around the store even now, and I wish him nothing but the best, as well as all the other players. However, even though I haven't been at the store in months, my contempt for Larry has only grown. This next part isn't an RPG horror story anymore, but real-life horror concerning the game shop Larry runs. So, a little while after the campaign ended, I was catching up with the DM, and he mentioned how apparently Larry's dad, the owner, has been coming into the shop more often and was concerned over finances. The shop was apparently bleeding money worse than when the pandemic peaked, which he found very odd. The DM then brought up that he had noticed a lot of strange behavior from Larry too. He mentioned how often the POS system would go down, and how he started asking customers for cash payments only. He thought it was strange that he started having special deals whenever the POS system went down too. That was when I remembered something strange as well. Last year, when I bought a source book, Guide to Ravenloft I believe, in the store, Larry asked me if I have cash on me, and I said yeah, but only like $25, when the price was around $45 to $50. He said that was fine, and that the POS system was down. I didn't think anything at the time, but after what the DM said, I asked any regular I knew if they had a similar situation, and they all did. I'm positive at this point that Larry has been selling items from the store and pocketing the cash for himself, stealing from his own dad's shop. Like I said, I knew his dad for years, so I came to him with what I knew, and he said he would look into it. Installing a camera in the main lobby apparently did the trick, as the DM told me about 2 months ago that Larry had been caught stealing and was fired by his own dad. He still loiters around a lot, so I've been hesitant to come back, but it feels good to know that Larry is no longer ruining his dad's business, nor the tabletop RPGs that they host. Damn, speaking of POS, Larry was certainly one, just in a different context. Larry showed how much of a that guy he was right off the bat, with the character build that he demanded the DM allow. Then, it sounds like things just got worse, but I can see why OP and the rest just put up with it, as they didn't have another place to go and play, and if they pushed Larry too hard, he had the power to boot them from the store, much like it sounds like he did at one point. Though I agree with OP that the screaming at the child was the last straw. It's at that point that no D&D became better than bad D&D. Though I will say that perhaps someone should have followed the kid outside and tried to comfort him until his mother got there, and then explained to her what happened. Otherwise, it sounds like the rest of the players did the right thing in calling Larry out. It doesn't surprise me to learn that Larry was caught stealing from the store either. The way he ran the shop just screams, "What's my dad's is mine, and I can do what I want." Hopefully, OP and the rest of the players can eventually find a place to all play together again. And as far as Larry still hanging around the store, I'm sure his dad would actually like to know that just his presence at the store is still affecting business. Let's move on. Dungeon Master targeted and killed my character on purpose. By Reddit user Infinite Crisis on Earth. I am part of a weekly D&D group made up of mostly beginners. Our DM has run games before and has overall been a good DM. However, at our most recent session, our party faced a Cyclops. My character is a Goliath barbarian with an AC of 21. The AC is so high because of magic items given to me by the DM. At the start of the encounter, my character was targeted by a move that instantly put me at 0 hit points. For about 5 more rounds, I was able to make my death saving throws and be healed by our paladin. However, I was once again targeted and failed my final death save. Additionally, the character death was described in such a way that the character had no way of coming back. At the end of the session, our DM said that my character was intentionally killed because of the high AC. This very much upset me, but I didn't really push it. I enjoy our group, but I feel like my DM really crossed a line, and I think I'll be finding a new DM. Yeah, that is a bit of a dick move. If the Dungeon Master was so concerned about OP's character having too high of an AC, especially due to the magic items that the DM gave them, then the DM should have just pulled OP aside, had a discussion about it, and tried to find some common ground in regards to possibly nerfing one of the items a bit, just so he could make things more balanced. Not just outright put OP's character in a situation that he had no hope of surviving, just to kill off the character. No wonder OP wants to find a new DM. Hell, I know I would. Let's move on. And before we do, I was recently told by a random commenter that it's transparent that I'm using my cats to help garner likes and subscriptions. And honestly, that wounded me. I would never do such a thing. Oops. Now, let's get into today's final story. AITA for insisting DMs can opt out of running minors at our brewery-based game night. By Reddit user 3 of Swords. Myself and 2 others, the Overlords, organized a weekly tabletop RPG game night at a brewery, averaging around 50 people a week, full of combo campaigns and one-shots. I run the one-shot tables, drop-ins, newbies, and a West March 30 players strong, which all account for about over half the players. I coordinate volunteer DMs and run 3 to 5 tables a week. The Overlords help to reboot the group, but they run their own, closed, long-term games hidden away in the back of the brewery. As it's a brewery, we don't get many kids. When we do get kids, 99.9% of the time, they end up at my one-shot tables. I allowed my DMs to opt in or out of having a minor sat at their table. It's a reasonable expectation when they volunteered that they would be running for adults, so for the exception of the incredibly rare kid, I give them a chance to make an informed decision. This system has worked, and we've never had to turn a minor away. The group technically is all ages, and I'm not anti-kid. I'm just pro-kid with a willing DM. When the Overlords heard, they lost their minds, saying that it was exclusionary, not in the spirit of the community, and absolutely not allowed to have a preference on running for a minor. They compared not wanting a 13-year-old playing at a table of 30-year-olds who have been drinking beer, a minimum tab requirement, to being homophobic and refusing to play with gay people. I'm LGBT, so that was extra insulting. They conveyed all of this in a private chat and tried to start enforcing it without getting any feedback from my 10+ DM volunteers that rotate. So I leaked the decision, a la Wizards of the Coast OGL. Maybe not professional, but they were literally ignoring me. Cue the crapstorm. Some DMs really aren't comfortable with children, and every single DM that commented agreed that they are usually fine with minors, but the option to opt out should be honored. We cleared up some of the minors rules, set a minimum age of 13+ after the Overlords learned that a 7-year-old was attending a while back, and that the minor must have a guardian supervising them 100% of the time. I posted the new age limit to stop the 7-year-old repeat, and the players were surprised. They also expected that they were going to be playing with other adults at a group called Insert Game Name and Craft Beer, not the real name. Played at a brewery on a weeknight that goes until 10 p.m. Cue the request to identify tables with minors so that the adults could make informed decisions about which table to sign up for. The Overlords literally said, "It's unfortunate if they aren't comfortable, but we won't change anything," and point blank ignored 15 players, 3 tables, worth of feedback. The conversation continued for days, until they finally agreed to basically revert back to my system of sign-up, with an Overlord in the middle. So, am I the a-hole? The Overlord said that I was unprofessional and trying to implode the group over something that was not a problem, when they were the ones that tried to enforce a policy with 0 community feedback and no compromise? Well, I certainly think that OP is not the a-hole here. It's not like he flat out turned away underage players, he just let the people running the game make an informed decision. I mean, it was at a brewery, and I'm sure that there were games that had more adult themes, and drunk people that no one would want a minor to be around. And like OP said, with this system he had in place, they never had to turn anyone away. Then for the quote-unquote overlords, to then compare that system to OP being homophobic is just ridiculous. I would have thrown that back in their face and asked them if they would allow the minors to get into their super exclusive private game. So, no OP, you were most definitely not the a-hole. If anything, they were. But that will do it for today. As always, I appreciate all of you, and I hope you all have a fantastic day. Until next time.